How do you write a character with no identity? Or more broadly, write a character that can encompass any kind of identity? A character that can transcend race, gender, height, weight, age. A character who isn't just your spouse, but your siblings, your parents, your children. They're not just the mayor you elected in your 50s, they're also the waitress who was kind to you in your 20s. They are everyone you have ever known and yet a complete stranger you know nothing about. How do you represent that in a single character? This is Zosia, or the Hive Mind, and I'm really excited to talk about this character because how often do you see a piece of film or television explore the sci-fi hive mind trope like this? You have this alien species intercept the Earth, the planet, and it hijacks the minds of everyone who lives on it, and yet it takes over the world. Everyone you know and love is gone. Now they're this one consciousness that has their memories, but also the memories of every other person in existence. There is no organised aid, there is no one to rescue you, and the place you once lived in is unrecognisable. It's this vacant ghost town with only buildings and art as the only evidence of life that once did exist. And you're scared, you're isolated, you're grieving in ways you never imagined, all because of this virus, this parasite that has corrupted your world. But for whatever reason, this virus, this parasite, it's not violent, at least not directly. It doesn't kill indiscriminately, it doesn't hunt you. Instead, it asks you how you're feeling, if you've drank enough water. It restocks your supermarket, it takes you to your favourite diner, it accommodates you to their new reality. And that's interesting for a dystopian world, right? Because how often do you watch a piece of film or television where there is this virus that has infected the entire world, but instead of trying to crush you under its foot, it lifts you up in ways you could never imagine? At least in the 21st century, because if you look back on the mid-80s, the concept of an alien hive mind was more prevalent in television with shows like V, The Tripods, and Star Trek The Next Generation, before breaking away into film around the late 90s with Starship Troopers and The Matrix. But interestingly, we haven't really seen the alien hive mind trope represented a lot in the 21st century. I think if I were to count on one hand how many times I've seen it in the mainstream, it would have to be The Host in 2013, The Suicide Squad in 2021, and I think that's about it. But there is another media that explores the trope more consistently, albeit under a different name, and that is the zombie genre, where we've seen movies and television rife with this genre in the past 10 years with shows like The Last of Us, The Walking Dead, Shaun of the Dead, All of Us Are Dead, and I could go on, but with all these titles with the word dead in them, I really don't want to get a DSMA. But the differentiation is in the name, right? When we see the trope of zombies, it's not just correlated with death, but this consumption of life, of the physical. Zombies don't just want your intelligence, they want your brain, and they want you to be as brainless as they are. They're not conscious of what they're doing, and if they are, it's as though they're slipping in and out of psychosis. It's unconscious or subconscious. It's this lack of intelligence, this lack of rationale. However, when we see hive minds in science fiction, we see their vessels are very much alive. They're not covered in blood and dirt, they're clean, they're conscious, they're vastly intelligent and often in pursuit of more intelligence. It's not just that they want to make the unaffected characters like them, it's that they want their knowledge, their experiences, their potential, all of which is used for a greater purpose than the hive mind itself, as a never-ending pursuit of existential consumption. And in the case of the others, they are a mix of the zombie and alien genre. Not only do they mentally consume the human experience, but they also physically consume them. They can't kill, they can't even pick an apple off a tree, so their main source of nutrients is in consuming the remains of people by turning them into this carton of HDP, human-derived protein. It's not bloody, primitive consumption, it's preserved, it's refrigerated. And yes, it's combined with produce close to expiration, but it's in this liquid. There's no texture, no flavouring. It's not organised or arranged like how we would prepare food. It's not just the others can't apply vegetation, meat or seasoning to their dietary. They don't. Despite having access to the memories of every human being on the planet, there is no artistic expression in their food. And yes, food is and can be an art form. It's not even something they can over or underindulge in either. They consume HDP strictly based on height and weight status. It is effectively a human protein shake. And that's ridiculous, right? But the concept of HDP completely encapsulates everything that's wrong with the other's trajectory. Their entire prerogative is to experience true unified bliss, but that bliss is never satiated. It is based on the desire to consume more, to consume Carol, to consume the remaining members of the human race, and to consume the existence of any other life form beyond Earth. And in that way, the hive mind is more like a zombie hive mind than an alien hive mind. But the only reason they're not treated as such is because the bodies the others use are still alive. I definitely think there's a case to be made that if the other survivors had lost their loved ones like Carol Carol did, they would be far more aligned with Carol's initial perspective and vice versa. If Helen hadn't died and Carol was able to readjust to this new world, or at least hold out hope that Helen was still Helen and could revert back to how she was, how the world was, I don't think she would be able to just give up on Helen entirely and would be more likely to empathise with the survivors. Especially Lakshmi, because once you peel back the layers of her frustrations with Carol, you can't help but immediately empathise with just how tragic her situation is. Arguably more so than Carol and Minosos, in my opinion. Minosos is deeply admirable in his resolve to save the world, but he's not doing it to save his loved ones. We learn before he starts his journey that he hated his mother, implicitly telling us that she was abusive towards him. So he's not doing this because he has a personal stake in saving the world, it's just what he needs to do. His pursuit is purely logical, not emotional, and we see that emphasised in his first meeting with Carol. While with Carol, Helen did become part of the others, but she also perished in the joining. Carol never had to contend with this new version of Helen and how that impacted her life, so her grief is more aligned with navigating death. And obviously, culturally, historically, humans have been grieving death since the beginning of time, so much to the point we have studies upon studies of the process, one of the most well-known being the Kubler-Ross model, or better known as the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And we use this model and others like it to articulate and navigate our emotions rather than compartmentalizing them or bottling them up until they take a toll on our mental health. In Lakshmi's case, her grieving process is more aligned with that of a loved one suffering from mental deterioration, such as Alzheimer's or Parkinson's disease, a grieving process that starts and continues over months, even years, while the person is still alive. And more commonly in real life, we see these kinds of diseases affect people into old age. Not exclusively, they can affect people younger. But in Lakshmi's situation, she doesn't just have to deal with this affecting her parents, but her husband and her son, her support system and her future. And it is heartbreaking to watch, to see Lakshmi continue to care for her son despite everyone, including her, know that's not really him anymore. But the way Lakshmi goes about adjusting to her new situation is very similar to how people and caretakers cope with family members who are living with neurological disorders by adjusting to their reality instead of projecting their own. If Carol's arc represents the 5 stages of grief, then Lakshmi sways between the denial, anger and bargaining stages under the Kubler-Ross model. We don't see a lot of the other survivors aside from Carol and Minosos this season, but it's clear the writers have been laying the foundation stones of a deeply profound arc for Lakshmi, and I'm really interested in seeing where they take her character in season 2. But let's get back to the others, or more specifically how the others weaponize Zosia against Carol. When we first see Zosia, she is effectively a living zombie. Her face and clothes are dirtied, and she is helping another vessel for the hive mind to collect a deceased person's remains for what we'd later learn to be for HDP. She is literally just another body that needs to be nourished based solely on necessity, not because someone cares about her or she has someone to care about. Even when she is removing the body from the car, she is not wearing any protective gear because the others just use her body as a means to an end. And we see this more explicitly before she meets Carol. After she lands in America, Zosia finally removes her dirtied clothes and showers because she is now a product of consumption for Carol. And while Carol grows fond of her and is curious as to the person Zosia once was before the joining, her body is still co-opted and only given value in pursuit of Carol. Her identity revolves around Carol and the survivors now, and is not her own. Although Zosia consistently depersonalizes herself by referring to herself as we instead of I, Carol and the audience can't help but grow attached to her because regardless of how another human being identifies, we can't help but form some kind of connection to them, especially when we live in close proximity to them. In Carol's case, the others know this, and it's what it weaponizes against Carol. Her isolation, her loneliness, her grief, all in the package of someone who physically resembles her fictional character, but emotionally mimics the idiosyncrasies of her dead wife. And that is the horror of Pluribus. It is deeply chilling in a way that zombie and alien hive mind tropes are not, because the violence of the others isn't direct, it's insidious. And Carol is only able to realize that when the others admit that they will never stop trying to convert her. But rather than crush her, Carol has herself emerged a new identity in this new world. One that is not isolated, one that is not afraid, and is now prepared to restore the world.